So basically, I was thinking I need to start putting up on my wall some of this stuff in a way that's coordinated and makes sense. I do that already in terms of keeping track of net worth, who are my friends, all that good stuff. What are my promises? But in terms of building a website that doubles as a book, that is simultaneously a book, to keep trekking forward on this idea of creating a theory of everything that is very, very intuitive, easy to use. This dash, we could start here. We have to start, there has to be a page one and there has to be a last page. So we're basically trying to move away from endless learning. So you go on Wikipedia and it keeps expanding faster than anybody could ever read the whole thing. It's not quite like a encyclopedia set from the past where it was humongous, but it was limited. In theory, over 5 years, you could probably read the entire encyclopedia set. With Wikipedia, it's not really the same. It actually is so popular to such an extreme that it expands faster than we can even understand what's going on. It's like the opposite of instant learning. So, I'm making many extreme statements, which is not really my intention. I do see it for the paradox that it is. But I think we can solve this paradox by putting this dash, for example, this is this dash that in a hive, such as a human hive, this is approximately proportional to this, male and female, masculine and feminine energy fields that interface are roughly equal. Not exactly, but somewhere in the ballpark of 85% approximately equal to. So in terms of promoting certain symbols and concepts over others for the betterment of humanity and the advancement of science, and to complement the 5 major faith-based traditions, Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, and complement their power trust hierarchies, complement science, complement scientists, revisit those age-old paradoxes. How do we get order or orb from chaos? And just building off of my very unique life experiences, having visited more than half of the countries in the world and having lived in 5 or 6 of them for extended periods of time, I do have a little bit different perspective than other people will ever have. And I'm very, 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 very grateful for that. Even if it was in a war zone in Iraq, or living in Thailand, or living in Malaysia, or living in Indonesia, or Bali, or Cambodia, or the United States, and I'm very grateful. So I think the thing that most people around the world in extreme poverty think about the most is egg, for a bunch of different reasons. So this would hyperlink back into Wikipedia to popularize this expression or symbol in English over. Basically, we want to move away from the concept. We actually kind of need to build off this. Like, we need to be like, hey, what if you were to peg this and this and this as this? Like, what if we were to do that? And then basically be like, we would basically be stuck at this paradox like science is stuck at in particle physics, where it's like electron versus anti-electron positron. If they meet, a bunch of energy gets released, and in theory they get mostly destroyed. So we're back at like matter and energy, or mass and energy, and it just creates this vicious paradox, vicious cycle of like basically idiocy. And I think we can break this by ironically noticing that these expressions are the most popular expressions around the world, and they roughly correlate to egg fertilized, emergence of one new life form, and unfertilized egg, like temporarily exists and goes back to ether, basically. And the energy fields that can combine that are roughly 50-50 to create one, or the emergence of one new life form. I think that concept is the single most intuitive concept on planet Earth for the most people in the most United Nations nation states. Even religious people, I think, feel really good about that. And then we can modulate it. This isn't exactly the case. This is this, peg this is this, but oh, by the way, it's like 85% correct. But I think that allows us to maintain this thread of uncertainty and mystery. It's just like Neil Armstrong said, mystery is what really drives curiosity in human beings. So if we get science to shut down curiosity and shut down imagination and make bold claims of knowing everything, and then we walk away feeling like we don't understand nothing and it doesn't really answer the questions that we're all after, I think we've lost the thread of uncertainty, mystery that drives human innovation, invention, and curiosity. So there's kind of a reason to peg this is this based upon this, and then modulate it by 85% this, and keeping this as kind of like the first thing that we teach everybody on Earth. Imagining, like Mark Cuban, multi-billionaire Mark Cuban says, you know, if you want to cross the billionaire mark, it's my motivation for doing all this. For better or worse, what do I get out of it? I, in theory, become a multi-trillionaire, and everybody who bets on me becomes a multi-billionaire. Exactly the same as Microsoft 40 years ago. Just add 3 more zeros. Bill Gates became a multi-billionaire. Everybody who bet on him became multi-millionaires. 40 years later now, I hope, I pray that exact same scenarios, just add 3 more zeros. My family becomes multi-trillionaires. Your family becomes multi-billionaires if this thing works. So like Mark Cuban says, I try to imagine, honestly, I ask myself the toughest question I possibly can, like which websites do people use more than any other websites on Earth? Facebook, Wikipedia, WikiLeaks. There is a website which ranks those. And there's also interesting phenomenons like Twitter ranks the popularity of a tweet, but if that tweet is then reposted on cable TV, then it actually hits a ubiquity factor that makes the data that Twitter gives totally invalid. So there's a lot of common sense when it comes to like which is actually the most popular technically, not what Facebook or Twitter or a website says this is true. It's actually, you know, wrong, more or less. So I'm speaking specifically of President Trump. You know, he tweets something and they say, oh, well, Katy Perry's tweets are more popular. Katy Perry has the single most popular tweets on planet Earth. But because President Trump's tweets were put on Fox News and CNN, if you just do the math, President Trump's tweets trump Katy Perry's tweets, technically speaking, which they have more influence on society and more of an impact on people's lives than Katy Perry. But Twitter will defend the false information based upon accurate algorithms. And that's fine, it is what it is, but just acknowledging that and understanding that is like would allow us to achieve what multi-billionaire Mark Cuban talks about, creating a product and service that every single person on Earth would use. So why? Well, I started out in life as a Christian, so I want to honor my mother and father and my grandfather and my grandmother. You know, I always want to say good things about them. I want to, you know, cherish and respect and build off of their life's work. So I want to take basically Stephen Hawking's theory of everything, which is him building off of Einstein, and then basically just modulate it a tiny bit, expand it out into 3 parts, label those parts, and then shift it over to 85%, 100%, 85%, 50%, 85%, 0%, using these symbols based upon this. And again, crossing the multi-billionaire mark is kind of like creating a Walmart website where there's something for everyone.